Am I subject to UCMJ? Hey, I am Chuck the Bureaucrat, and a little while ago, I did a video that looked at a report commissioned by Congress that affirmed the fact that military retirees are subject to UCMJ authority. And as you can imagine, that did not exactly make a lot of people happy. But I thought it'd be a good idea to take a look at the full list of people who are subject to UCMJ authority, just so we could understand this a little bit better. To get oriented, we are going to be looking at U.S. Code Title 10, Section 802. This is where Congress puts Article 2 of UCMJ, the people who are subject to this authority. Now, personally, I always find that citation of UCMJ in U.S. Code a little surprising. And that's because, as I was going through the military, people always acted like UCMJ was some sort of separate manual. But the truth of the matter is, these articles live in U.S. Code because they are set by Congress. Anyways, as we look at who is subject to UCMJ authority, I suggest that there's really three different groups of people. The first group is just people who are in some kind of duty status, whether that's active duty or cadets or reserve soldiers doing weekend drills. The second group are retirees, and then the third group are people who are just associated with the military, co-located with them. And I'll show you more what I mean when we get there. So now let's just look at that first group of people, folks who are in some kind of duty status. First, you have members of the regular component of the armed forces and anybody who is called to active duty. Then you have cadets, aviation cadets, and midshipmen. And finally, members of the reserve component who are on inactive duty training. This includes the ancillary times surrounding the training, like traveling to the training and the time between consecutive days. The important thing to notice is that all the people in this group are getting paid. And notice something else. Those reserve component soldiers are not subject to UCMJ while they're at their civilian jobs and not getting paid by the Department of Defense. The second group of people are retirees. And again, you're going to notice this theme that they're being paid by the Department of Defense. You got retired members of a regular component who are entitled to pay. Then you got retired members of a reserve component. But check this out. They not only have to qualify for their non-regular retirement, but they have to be receiving the retired pay. And then finally, you have members of the Fleet Reserve and the Fleet Marine Corps Reserve. Where things change is when you move further down the list of people who are subject to UCMJ. You see, up to this point, everybody we've mentioned has, in one way or another, been getting some kind of payment from DFAS. Now you're going to notice that this group of people is merely associated with the Department of Defense. You got members of NOAA and the Public Health Service who were assigned and serving with the armed forces, prisoners of war in custody, people serving with or just accompanying the armed forces into the field during a time of war. So an embedded journalist would be covered by this. Same thing for folks accompanying armed forces outside of the U.S. or people who are just in an area leased by the United States outside the continental U.S. And then finally, you got individuals belonging to certain categories listed in the Geneva Convention. But so what? I mean, what does this really mean for you in terms of your relationship with the Department of Defense? Well, I think it means three things. Number one, if they're paying you, they got you. Number two, if you're just tagging along with the military, mind your P's and Q's, because you're subject to an entirely different set of rules. And number three, there is a piece of good news in this, particularly for those of you who did your 8 and hit the gate. That is, veterans who served, they did their time, and were separated. Obviously, these folks are no longer getting money from DFAS, even if they are getting money from VA. And that means these people are not subject to UCMJ. So, live your dream. Speak your mind for those of us who have to hedge our bets and count your lucky stars. In the meantime, if you're curious about the rules for wear of the uniform by retirees, watch this video. And if you're interested how those rules work for people who did not retire, veterans, watch this video.